This is the Craft of Coaching podcast, where you'll learn about how to become a life coach with a strong skill set through understanding the craft of coaching. I'm Kate Swoboda, also known as Kate Courageous. As the director of a life coach training program called the Courageous Living Coach Certification Program, I'm passionate about the craft of coaching and how we evolve the skills and the industry. Learn more about our program at teamclcc.com, and here's today's episode.
Hey everybody, it's Kate, and I am recording this at a particularly exciting time of year as it happens. It's a particularly exciting time of year because we have a new cohort of the Courageous Living Coach Certification who are about to graduate. And for us in our program, we have some pretty rigorous standards that are all modeled after ICF guidelines, including things like recording a 30-minute session of your coaching and the coach doing a self-evaluation of their own coaching according to the ICF core competencies, and then our team reviewing the coach's coaching using the ICF core competencies, giving the coach that feedback, and then meeting for a one-on-one session to discuss all of our feedback. This is a very supportive session, by the way. I mean, we really take on the ethos in our program that if you're joining us, you're going to be supported in a million different ways around growing as a person, as well as growing as a coach. And courage does not mean the absence of fear. This is not about trying to become fearless. And we don't collude with perfectionism. That's actually one of the maxims that we talk about at our intro retreat each year. We don't collude with perfectionism. We don't pretend that if only we would be perfect, you would be totally okay, or as if only you would be perfect, we would totally be okay, because we definitely don't want our coaches that we're training to go into the world expecting that they have to be perfect coaches in order to get results for their clients, or that their clients have to be perfect clients in order to see results in their lives. Now, all that to say that that's why today's topic in particular is of great interest to me, because today I'm going to be talking about what do you do after you've got your life coach certification? And what I mean is, what do you do when it's like you've got your training, you've got your certification, and you're in that new place of kind of like, okay, I can't totally jump into this as a full-time career yet. I still have a mortgage to pay or, other things that I have to do financially while I'm building my business. And given that I have those things that I need to do, how am I going to organize my time? There's this real feeling of inertia that can happen for coaches right after they finish training. And there's actually a reason why with the Courageous Living Coach Certification, we structure our year the way that we do. Because when I was developing the program, I interviewed a lot of coaches, and I interviewed coaches from all walks of life. I talked to people who have the MCC, like the highest level of certification that the ICF offers. And I talked to people who had never been in a standard coaching environment. And I talked to people who do just all different styles and backgrounds in terms of coaching. And I was listening for what are the things that for them would make for a better training program, because of course I was in the process of developing a training program. So one of the common things that I heard was that most training programs are structured in such a way where it's like you're in this intensive certification environment and then you go, I'm certified, now what? So when we began designing the CLCC, that's why we said, okay, let's be really intentional about this. We need to have a retreat to kick off the year. And that's always held at the beginning. And it needs to be an in-person retreat because that's how you get the kind of connection and bonding that will sustain the group for the entire year. Because we've all been in these environments before where an online course where nobody ever meets in person just doesn't quite gel. Sometimes they do, but it's a higher likelihood that it won't gel when there's no person-to-person contact. And this is an intimate arena. Coaching is intimacy, it's vulnerability, it's caring, it's unconditional support. So we want to start off that way. And then for the first several months of the program, we're in this intensive environment where there are these weekly calls, weekly practicum, homework assignments, all of that. And then we get into summer. And for CLCC, when we get into summer, we stop with the requirement around the weekly calls. There are still some assignments that are required, mastermind meetups, so you're still staying connected to everyone. There's some self-paced work that we're giving. Our trainees get both basic and advanced marketing, and so those marketing materials are given to you, and that's something that people work on over the summer. So there are definitely some structured activities that people have to work on during the summer, but it's not quite like being kicked out of the nest. It's not quite like, oh, hey, we hit the last training call. Boom, you're done. You're out there. You're coaches. Bye. And that was really intentional on our part. So we have the initial period that's very intensive, very connected, very close. During the summer, we are very transparent about the fact that we want you to be connecting with the rest of your cohort without our facilitators always being behind the connection, always being the ones to say, here's the topic or here's when we're meeting up. And this approach, I think, is one of the reasons why CLCC has been so successful with people staying connected long after the program is over. And if you read any of our testimonials, you'll see that that's what people say. This is a community for life. Of course, if you choose it, if community isn't your thing, we're probably not your thing. But in essence, what I'm trying to get at is that if you have gone through a coach training program where that kind of gradual getting out there into the world as a coach didn't happen, if it felt really sudden, I would like to invite you to create the gradual for yourself, to take it upon yourself to go after my life coach certification. It can feel like a very abrupt change, but I can create it in any way that I want it, which means that I can take this slow, I can be organic, I can let things evolve as they are going to evolve. And I will just share on my end of the podcast mic, I guess you could say, that consistency, I think, is the number one thing that you want to have going for you after you get out of your coach certification program. Because if you aren't being consistent about showing up and making it clear to people that you're available to be their coach, you don't build the momentum that you really need to build to make a business that you can actually turn to as your career, like an actual business. So, what to do after you've got your life coach certification? I already mentioned, if you feel like you had a really abrupt shift out of training, get back in contact with your cohort. Revisit some of the lessons from your training. Create it as you would like it. You have the sovereignty to design this in any way that you want. Next, really focus on consistency around your marketing. Now, I know that a lot of coaches leave their coach training and marketing is like, I don't want to have to do marketing. So again, here is my invitation/challenge for you. Set it up in a way that works for you. Set a plan that you can be accountable to for staying consistent around marketing. And if what you love to do is chat people up, then start a podcast. And if what you love to do is create art, then put beautiful quotes on Instagram. And if what you love to do is write, then write those blog posts. And really do the personal work of noticing that if any part of you is going, well, I could do that, but nobody even knows that I exist. Nobody cares. What if somebody reads something I write and they, send me hate mail, Like, it's that thing where it's like, there's no way out but through. Marketing will not always feel this way if you decide that you are going to work on it until it doesn't feel this way. And I always like to give the example of, if you take 30 days of your life and you say, I am going to get 1% better, teensy, 1% better at something every day for 30 days. 30 days later, you will be 30% better. And 60 days later, you will be 60% better. That's more than halfway to 100%, my friends. And then 90 days later, that's only 3 months. You will be almost to 100%. But you've got to decide on that 1% better And that is the thing. And whether it's a mental shift that you need to make, or if it's a get your butt in the seat and write the blog post for your 1%, whatever that is, that's what you got to do, because that is consistency. That is accountability. That is showing up. Now, here's something I would say don't do after you've got your life coach certification. Don't blow a bunch of money on high ticket items. Don't blow a bunch of money on a big marketing course. Big as in like a, $5,000, $10,000 mastermind type thing. Coach after coach I've spoken to has told me about how they blew a ton of money on high-priced marketing courses right after they got out of training. And it turned out that they were just like, I wasn't ready for it at the time. And I wholeheartedly agree. You are still learning when you are just finished with your coach certification. You are still learning about the kind of coach that you want to be. And I have seen it happen so many times as well, where coaches just evolve. Sometimes it takes a year of being out there coaching before you realize, oh, I don't want to be a health and wellness coach. Who knew? I thought I wanted to be a health and wellness coach. I'm all health and wellness all through my coach training. But now that I'm actually out there professionally doing it, what my heart yearns for is to talk to moms about parenting. That's what I always want to talk about. And if you spend a ton of marketing right after you get a ton of money on marketing right after you get out of coach training, and then 6 months or a year down the line, as you get deeper into the profession, you realize, oh, I want to pivot my entire brand. You're out $5,000 or $10,000. This is a fact. Most of what you need to know about marketing at this stage, you can get from a few books or self-paced courses. I'm going to say that one more time. Most of what you need to know about marketing at this stage, when you're right out of certification, you can get from a few books or self-paced courses. You do not need to spend thousands of dollars. Same goes for website, by the way. Like a basic website is totally fine. The fanciest website does not win. Keep your money. Keep your money, especially since you just spent it on certification, right? Keep your money and really go into, okay, let me keep it simple. What are the basics of marketing that I need to be doing consistently? Now, if you're a graduate of CLCC, we include both basic and advanced marketing, and we're pretty open about the fact that our goal is to give you enough marketing materials that you are basically busy for a year. Not busy as in busy work, but busy as in you've got marketing work that you can do for a year following graduation from our program. And if you didn't get that kind of marketing help or training through the program that you took, look for low-cost resources. I have one that it's part included in CLCC. It's called the Coaching Blueprint, and you can learn more about it at coachingblueprint.com. You also could check out a book that I'm always recommending to people called Value Proposition Design by the Strategizer Group. Or Alexander Osterwald, whichever one. You can look it up on Amazon, of course, Value Proposition Design. And that book, I think, is excellent. It's only like, $20, $30. So you stick with a book or a self-paced course at the beginning. And here's the thing, because I know I've heard this before too, where people are like, oh, no, I need the accountability. I need like a program. I need someone checking in with me. It's like, here's the truth bomb. I'm going to let go here. If you can't stick with a book or a self-paced course, that is the bigger problem that needs to be addressed. As a coach, take that on as the area to look at, because it's just not a high commitment to ask of someone that they take 15 minutes a day to work on learning a little bit about marketing, or 15 minutes 3 times a week to learn a little bit about marketing. And at least for me, speaking for the Coaching Blueprint, each module has a series of exercises, and intentionally I designed all those modules to try to give you little 15, 20-minute exercises. And some of them do take longer, but you can do a little bit each day and get pretty far. So if you can't stick with a book or a self-paced course to do your marketing learning, that is the first thing that you need to look at. Take that on as the next area of development for yourself as a professional coach. Now I'm going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum around this, what to do after you've got your life coach certification, and talk about burnout. Because that's the other thing that I see. There's a tendency for most coaches to go into one of two polarities. There's either, I'm totally intimidated by all things marketing, and now that I'm a coach, I feel like now what? And so I just go into my fear and I hide out and I don't do anything. I don't use any of my coaching skills. I don't get coaching. I don't do the work to get out of this place of hiding out. But equally as dangerous is the opposite polarity. And perfectionists, listen up, because this is probably something you could be inclined to do. And I definitely, I'm raising my hand on this one. This is me all the way. Go in the opposite end of the spectrum where you sign up for all the things and you're going to do all the things. And you do this thing where you're like, okay, I'm done with my coach training certification. Here we go. I'm working on my book proposal. I'm submitting some proposals to get my TEDx talk out there. I'm also developing my group program while I up-level my website, and I have a photo shoot scheduled next week to get my professional headshots taken. And then I'm also going to start working on my ideas for my podcast. And I've got an editorial calendar. I've laid it all out. You can hear how I'm talking faster. And we can all kind of giggle at ourselves, right? Because this is the opposite end of hiding out, but it's just as dangerous. Because perfectionism and that kind of a workload will lead to burnout. Another danger that can come with that kind of, I'm going full bore in the other direction, that I'm doing all the things. Aside from burnout, there can be a real, what do they call it? Sunk cost bias, I think, where you've put so much time and energy, you've sunk so many costs into something that you go, I should keep going with this, even if actually your evolution demands that you let it go. It's kind of similar to what I was talking about earlier, where it's like we can get this idea in our head like, I'm a health and wellness coach. I'm a health and wellness coach. I'm a health and wellness coach. And then, somebody who goes full bore and they do the health and wellness podcast and the health and wellness website and the health and wellness TED Talk and the health and wellness book proposal, when they get so at the beginning stages before they really know who they want to be as a coach, they can sink so much into that path that then when another path, like talking about parenting, calls to them, it feels hard to go, I got to let go of health and wellness. So the real lesson here is about opening yourself up and allowing yourself space to discover. I mean, what would you give a client in the same place? It's always the life coach, hat trick to pull out. What would I give to a client? If I saw my client, trying to do 100 things the day after they finished a certification program, wouldn't I bring up the possibility of burnout? Wouldn't I, encourage them to do things that are going to support their health and their ease and their fulfillment? Well, I'd like to believe that you would. So give that to yourself. Slow down. Set goals that are achievable, certainly, but it doesn't need to all happen right away. And as far as I can tell, there's really no way to engineer virality. There's no way to engineer coming onto the coaching scene and blowing up and you're like the best coach ever and you're immediately making, I don't care who promises that. Actually, I have another thought on, people promising that. I think they're full of shit. And I think they're massively out of integrity to be promising something like that to new and emerging coaches. And especially when part of promising that is this push to be relentless, to go, 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 to see success as an external validation. Like you're only really contributing something or really doing a great job with your business or as a coach if you're making $1 million. It's just so empty. It's such a hungry ghost. You absolutely can make money doing this, but I don't want it to come at the cost of your mental well-being, your physical well-being. And I don't think that you should collude with setting yourself up to go, 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 hustle, 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 do, do, do. I mean, isn't that a paradigm that like 90% of our clients coming to us are trying to get out of? Do you know anyone who isn't talking about being stressed or overwhelmed or busy or having too many things to do? Why set ourselves up that way? It doesn't make sense. So, lots of taking a breath. But at the same time that I do that even, and if you've listened to the Craft of Coaching podcast long enough, you've heard me say at some point during an episode, I'm not into binaries. I'm not into because it's one thing, it can't be another thing. I think we need to look for the nuance. I think we need to honor our humanity. So at the same time that I'm saying, hey, don't go into hideout mode where you totally cop out on yourself and your business. And at the same time that I'm saying, don't go into burnout mode where everything is full bore. I'm also saying that we need to pay attention to one of the biggest capital S stories that comes up for coaches. Coaching is leadership in many ways. And the story, capital S story, as in an internal narrative, that your personal health, ease, and fulfillment is the inevitable cost of being able to fulfill your role as a coach is your biggest leadership weakness. If you think, and you might not consciously think that, and you might hear this now and you might go, oh, I don't think that. But if you are living your life in such a way that really to fulfill your role as a coach, your personal health, your ease, your fulfillment, your relationships, your parenting, etc., if that is all suffering, then there's a story that's there that those things can't coexist peacefully. So the story that your personal health, ease, and fulfillment is the inevitable cost of being able to fulfill your role as a coach is your biggest leadership weakness. And we could actually shift this slightly because I know that sometimes people don't think of this in terms of being a coach per se. So I'll say it slightly differently. The story that you building your business. So the story that your personal health, ease, and fulfillment is the inevitable cost of you building your business is your biggest leadership weakness. To exemplify this point, I'll say that, if you've ever been in a situation where you were really down and tired, low energy, you're out running errands, and then you run into someone who maybe you haven't seen in a while, and within minutes you're, oh, hey, how are you? And you're laughing and you're feeling energized. Then you've seen firsthand that the idea that you have no choice around feeling exhausted and depleted is BS. So the story that you becoming a professional coach and fulfilling that role or building your business cannot be in parallel with health and ease and fulfillment, happiness, showing up for your kids, showing up for your partner. That's the leadership weakness to work on. Aside from physical illness, feeling exhausted and depleted is a mental shift. When we feel exhausted and depleted for a long time, that's the mental result of when we go too long being out of integrity with ourselves in some area of our life. And, this is the eternal theme, right? We can't give what we don't have. We can't draw from an empty well. And the work starts with us. So it's not about, I'm going to go out there and be a coach with a bunch of tips and tricks. I'm going to go out there and be a coach. And part of the necessary work for me of being a coach is looking at my own internal narratives, my own internal stories, the choices that I make on autopilot that are fear-based habits. How do you look at those and examine those? Do you have regular structures in your life for looking at and examining those? A daily integrity check-in is a great idea. This doesn't mean that you can't really be a coach until you have all of your stuff together. And there are other Craft of Coaching episodes where I actually talk about that. There's one on building your confidence as a coach, because that's definitely something that comes up in CLCC where trainees talk about, I feel like, how can I possibly coach someone else when I don't have a perfect life? Like my life isn't totally together. And again, I think that it's a hybrid kind of thing. Coaching is not about you have a perfect life. Coaching is about holding a container where you're co-creating something with your client so that both of you are supporting the client's agenda for moving forward. That doesn't mean that you yourself as coach have to be perfect. There are no doctors who have perfect health. There are no accountants who have perfect finances. There are no therapists who have perfect lives either. If perfection were the prerequisite, no one would ever get started. So this isn't about you have to be perfect, but it is absolutely imperative that you have some integrity around your own regular tools and your own regular development. And that's another thing that you want to integrate into what am I doing after my life coach certification? What am I working on? How am I organizing my time? Put some time in there for the things that fortify you, whether those things are going for a run or a walk, or those things are dinners with friends, or those things are camping out in a library with like your favorite books. What are the things that fortify you, that balance it out? It is hard to sit down and go, who am I as a coach, when you complete a marketing exercise and feel the stress of, I don't know who I am. Oh, how do I write this sales page? And that's why you have to balance it out with the things that are going to rejuvenate you, replenish you, and leave you feeling resourced. And if you continue to do this dance for a long time of dipping a toe into the things that feel uncomfortable, like continuing to show up for yourself, develop who you are, market yourself, learn about marketing, put yourself out there as a professional coach when everyone in your life has always seen you in a different way, combined with the dance of, okay, I get some downtime. I go for a walk. I see a friend. I stay off the internet for a couple days. I listen to podcasts that help me to think about who I want to be and how I want to develop. When you feed your own well, combined with going back to that place of leaning into the discomfort, and you keep doing that, the discomfort and then the rest, and the discomfort and then the rest, that's how you build resilience. If you are looking at any coach anywhere, myself, any six-figure coach, million-dollar coach, any coach who you enormously admire because their skill set is amazing, any coach who has written a book or given a talk and you were like, oh my God, that changed my life, I guarantee you that coach started somewhere in their life feeling like they were sitting down to do something they didn't know how to do, and their inner critic was just as loud as yours. And the only difference between where you are, if you feel stuck by that inner critic, and where they are, is that they decided to consistently lean in, rest, go into the discomfort, rest, go into the discomfort, rest. That is it. And they developed strength in the same way that you develop muscle strength. And that gives them a capacity to be able to do more, to withstand more, to handle more. That's what you're really in training with now, after your life coach certification has finalized. And, you're the one who's in choice in terms of how you frame this time in your life. Is it, oh my God, it's so stressful and so hard, and how am I ever going to make it as a coach? Or do you use a coaching tool? Interrupt your own ruminative thoughts. Stop, pause, wait, hold on, let me take a breath. Let me get mindful. That is not how I want to proceed. What is a thought or a belief I can choose instead? And there's so many out there. So be conscious of what you're choosing. Speaking of choices, okay? Now, if you're driving, make sure you pull over before you do this. But if you're listening in any kind of a space where it's safe to start writing down some action steps, you're listening to a life coach when they're like, all right, time for some action steps. Write them down. What are you going to do? What are you going to commit to around your marketing? What are you going to commit to around your personal growth? Take out your schedule. Schedule it in. As Lara Heacock of Kind Over Matter, one of our facilitators, has said to me, and I love that she said this, what gets put on the calendar gets done. What's your commitment to creating this space, which is really a delicious, curious, exploratory space after your life coach certification is finished? What's your commitment to creating this in the most sovereign, open, adventurous type of energy that you can imagine? It's all up to you. You're the one who gets to choose. So go ahead and write down your action steps. And if you want to share any of them with me, you always can. You can find me on social media, Instagram, Kate Courageous, Facebook, Your Courageous Life. I so appreciate it anytime someone leaves a rating in iTunes, because that helps more people to find the podcast. So if anything about today's podcast has been helpful to you, even if you just pop over to iTunes and do a quick little ping, 5 stars, and that's all you do, still so helpful. You can learn more about the Courageous Living Coach certification at teamclcc.com. That's team as in TEAM, CLCC.com. Thanks so much for listening. And here's to you, creating the most amazing, most easeful, most fulfilling coaching practice of your dreams.